And welcome to another episode of Talking Tunes with Toys. I am your host, Barney the Dinosaur, along with my cohorts, SpongeBob and SponBalloon SquarePants. Woohoo! What's up, everyone? Yeah, we're back in it, baby. We're back in it. Glad to see y'all again. How are you guys doing? I'm doing well. Barney, how about you? Strangely enough, I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling it. We're motivated. We're back in it, doing what we love. And I just feel good that we're able to keep doing this. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good too. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling motivated. I'm feeling spiffy and ready. Yeah. But we're extra glad that we can continue to talk about niche cartoons. So, for those of you that don't know, this is Talking Tunes with Toys, the podcast where we talk about niche, obscure cartoons in the world of animation and media. You probably already know us from our various collection of shows, Barney and Friends and SpongeBob SquarePants. But together, you see in this form, but together we actually are part of a cartoon and show on YouTube called Adventures of the Trio. So me, along with these two SpongeBob copies, are known as the trio. So that's why we are able to talk about cartoons because technically we are considered cartoons, at least in that realm of YouTube. And yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really glad that we're doing this again. Yeah, I'm feeling acceptable. I'm feeling excellent. I'm feeling acceptable. You already said that. Uh, yeah, and I'm feeling positive and satisfactory and surprised. I don't, whatever. But yes, and so this podcast we talk about cartoons, and we are very glad to talk about many obscure and niche animation and in the industry today. And I'm also feeling favorable and marvelous and quality and spanking and sterling and superior. Okay, wait. Are you just rattling off the synonyms for good? And what does spanking mean? No, I'm not doing that. Click. Okay, you literally just said click. Why would you say the word click? Nobody can see us, so you could have just said no, and nobody would be the wiser. Okay. Type it out. Type it on Google search. Type it on Google search. Why must you two keep ruining everything? Uh, Moving on. And so, yes, we are glad that we are still able to talk about cartoons on this podcast, and we are exceptionally glad that we're able to talk about this show because this show, I feel, speaks very closely to our hearts, well, at least one of our host hearts, and speaks very well to our guest that's coming in. And baby, oh, we have got a big one that we have managed to snatch up for this podcast. She is a graphic designer for Peaches and Cream Foundation, a photographer for Cherry Hills Program, certified jury intern for the 2024 Student World Impact Film Festival, one of the largest film festivals in the world, and is a freelance 2D animator, has worked for companies such as Necessary Behavior, Downside Up Incorporated, Fairy Godmother Productions, and the Human Survival Project. Ladies and gentlemen, Madisen Meleski!
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure to have you, Madison, and thank you so much for coming onto this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is such a great opportunity. It sounds so exciting.
Amazing. And you're probably aware of at least two of our hosts, but just in case as you don't know, I am in fact Barney the Dinosaur from Barney and Friends, and all that stuff.
Yep, sounds fun.
Yeah. Hi, Madison. Hello. We're SpongeBob. Well, two SpongeBobs.
Oh my gosh, I'm such a big fan.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, no need to sugarcoat them. Then they already have enough ego in them already. Yeah, well, we're glad to have you here, and we're glad that we're talking about animation with you, especially as someone of your caliber as a 2D animator.
Yeah, so animation just has always been such an important part of my life, and watching TV shows and movies has always inspired me more. So, like, I love to learn from all these TV shows and movies, especially obscure ones, like ones that maybe people don't know too much about.
I love that. And, obviously cartoons have had such a big influence on you, but what would you say are like some of the like genres of cartoons or animations that you think really influenced you? Or like can you pinpoint like a specific genre or type of animation that you think really had an impact on you to want to pursue this creatively?
Well, actually, there is one very specific show that did inspire me, and that is My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, which
Oh
aired
yeah.
that aired from 2010 to 2019, I believe. And that was the one point in my life where I was like, I want to do this. Like, this is what I want to do. But even like before that, there were so many shows, like Disney shows, Nickelodeon shows. Like, and I would just kind of watch them as a little kid and be like, well, how are they doing that? Like, how are these like pictures moving? And I couldn't figure it out until like I got older and I did my research. And some of those very specific shows are like House of Mouse from like that was like way
Mm.
early 2000s, and like Clifford the Big Red Dog, like that was one that I loved to watch as a little kid. And Catscratch on Nickelodeon, that was one show that I will go like, around and ask people like, "Do you remember that one show Catscratch?" And nothing. No one remembers it. But that was like such an influential show for me. And yeah, those are like a few examples.
Oh, you just but first of all, deep cuts bringing in House of Mouse. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you just described the show that we're talking about, and yes, and if you guys didn't hear that, and we are talking today about the show, the Nickelodeon show, Cat Scratch, a show that I will say, out of all the Nickelodeon shows that are considered like niche or obscure, um, Cat Scratch is probably one of the most talked about in terms of underrated, especially for the popularity that it had at the time. Like say like McDonald's toys, as for example. Do you remember the McDonald's toys of Cat Scratch, Madison?
I actually had some, and I remember I had Gordon, a plush Gordon, and a plush Waffle, and I had them for so many years, and then I lost them, and I was so sad.
Oh, no. Oh, that hurts us. That hurts us as toys in general.
I know, it's so sad.
Oh man, yeah. But Cat Scratch, I feel like even if you haven't seen it in like years or anything, I feel like that's just one of the shows that even if it comes up in like general conversation, you remember it so deeply because it was one of those shows that uh, maybe it was swept under the rug, but it still had a pretty big following.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I will see fan art from it like across the internet and like people who do know it. And I think that's really special because I remember like growing up, I feel like I was the only person who knew it basically. But yeah, like it's so cool to like find out like so many years later that there's a big fan base around it.
Like I said, out of all the Nickelodeon shows, that one is considered probably the most underrated one out of the bunch. Besides a few others, but yeah, this is definitely one of them. Before we get into this, because we have a lot to talk about, because this show I feel like definitely speaks to SpongeBob's heart. SpongeBob is going to give us a little brief synopsis on the show Cat Scratch in a segment called Brief Bob, where SpongeBob will give a little synopsis and a little trivia and behind the scenes knowledge on Cat Scratch. So SpongeBob, take it away, buddy. It's interesting how, when you look at the massive catalog of Nickelodeon animation over the years, how many cartoons can have the title of being considered niche or obscure, despite the fact them being praised at the time of being or being a memorable piece of Nickelodeon history. Couch Couch is one of those shows that, despite having a little bit of fame via award nomination and McDonald's collaboration, in the wide scheme of it all, is still considered a wash in the vast library of Nickelodeon animation. Created in 2005 by Doug TenNapel, creator of the popular Earthworm Jim games, Catscratch revolved around three feline brothers who inherited a lavish amount of wealth after the passing of their eccentric owner. The series chronologizes the trio's misadventures utilizing that wealth through a series of wacky escapades such as flying to the moon, traveling to the center of the earth, and sometimes through paranormal and extraordinary experiences. The series lasted to 2005 to 2007 and garnered a couple of award nominations for directing and sound, but was unfortunately canceled after just 40 episodes. So that, in essence, is Cat Scratch. Back to the podcast episode. Cue Laser Light Show. That is a deep cut quote to one of the episodes of Cat Scratch, and that's another thing too. Again, going back, even though Cat Scratch was a very long time in 2005, 2007, Jesus, so long ago. Um, if you watch the show, there are just some of these like deep cut lines and notable quotes that even if you haven't read and you haven't seen it in a while, if you just hear the Cat Scratch, as those quotes are like burn into your brain. Like Madison, for example, when you hear the name Cat Scratch, what sticks out to you when you remember that show?
I remember the little newts because I remember Waffle had pet newts that would run around the house. And I remember that was so funny. And the newts would sing as well. And that was like the whole thing. Like when you hear Cat Scratch, immediately you think of the theme song, that la 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 la. And I just remember that was so funny to me. And yeah, I just remember the dynamic between all the brothers and how like everyone was so different and so unique. And also like just to the animation just stands out to me because the cats didn't necessarily look like cats. And that's like another thing that really inspired me when we were talking about what kind of got me into art because I think it like thinking outside the box really helps an artist.
Hmm. Yeah, which leads to the question. I mean, you kind of already answered, but what about Cat Scratch makes it such a guilty pleasure for you?
Um, I think that just the humor stands up so well still after like 15 years. Because I went back and watched a few episodes like a few years ago after not seeing it for 10 years. And I was laughing out loud at some of the jokes. And like they even like throw in a little like things for adults as well. So like when you go back and watch it, it still holds up. And like the humor is I guess for like families. I think that's another thing about animation is like if you only aim towards children, like then your audience, like you can't aim towards everyone. Like you have to aim towards adults as well. You have to make it for families so everyone can enjoy it.
Yeah, there's a term in comedy. It's referred to as like smart comedy or like highbrow comedy, which there's no like clear defined definition, but in essence, it's basically characters that have like witty dialogue or jokes that are sort of like sort of layered almost. I was like, no, I was like, it's not like to the point where it's just like a simple joke.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like it's a different form of comedy. I mean, where it's not like just like the simple like gag or like simple like reflex or whatever. You know, it goes with what you said, and you said there's a layer to it that appeals to both children, but there can also be a little innuendo there for adults, and that's why it's so present in some of the biggest sitcoms, in television history. I'm curious, Madison, when you hear Madison, what would be like your definition of like smart comedy, especially in terms of cartoons?
I think smart comedy is definitely like we talked about aiming towards like families, like making it so that adults can enjoy jokes as well. So like I think smart comedy is if you sit an entire family down, if you're able to keep the attention of the entire family, like all different age ranges, to stay focused on the show and not be like, like checking their phone or falling asleep, then I think that that's definitely smart comedy and including like maybe like references. That's a big thing that would keep me like interested in so many shows growing up is I'd love to catch references to like old movies or like, pop culture references. And like I remember they would do that like going back to My Little Pony. I remember they would do that so much. Like, they would throw in, like, a quote from, like, Broadway shows or, like, just, like, really classic movies that everyone knows, and it was so fun to catch them and then go online and, like, see who else caught them as well.
Yeah, it's a fun thing when you can really have fun with that because it appeals to both children and adults. Even if the children don't really get the references, adults certainly will. And it's especially present in shows like this. As like we just talked about, the creator of Catscratch was the creator of the Earthworm Jim games, and I can't remember exactly the episode. But I feel, but there definitely was a reference to the Earthworm Jim games in one of the episodes. I can't remember which one. And yeah, but that's a big thing, and in terms of like smart comedy, allowing that layered action to be both funny and both and be kind of referential, and I feel like that's something that a lot of cartoons don't really see nowadays. I'm not sure why. Madison, do you feel this?
Um, I do feel that because I feel like today a lot of cartoons, like, it's so different now. I feel like maybe it's because of how children have evolved over time and, like, just, um, they're marketing towards different things in general. Like, I feel like I didn't grow up in the same world as children who were born, like, in 2010 or, like, 2015, So I think that that's a big thing. And so different cartoon, like, companies and stuff are trying to find ways to grab children's attention, but also, like, market towards adults. And it's such a strange, like, fine line of where to it falls. And I think that, like, we're still in the process of figuring that out. And also, like, it's all about experimentations. I think that a lot of these companies are really trying to find that middle ground of what appeals to children, what is getting them, like, off the ground, like, what is making their cartoons popular, and also, like, what do these cartoonists want to see in animation? Like, what is making them want to continue to be in this field?
It's a difficult thing nowadays, especially with all like studio pressure and like things with like streaming and all that. All that it's a tough bill to really sink your teeth in. And but I mean that's why we do this podcast, has to talk about how some of these shows, while they might be underrated, and it can still work. Uh, at least for back then. Like going back to Cat Scratch, that's one of the things that I found interesting, and was the simplicity behind it all. Because if you think about it, you might be a little young for this. I don't know if you ever know. If you ever know about the Adams Family, had like the old like OG like black and white Adams Family show. That show really predicated on the family, since they were really the core cast. And if you look at a thing like Cat Scratch, there weren't that many like main characters involved in the show. In fact, all of the main characters were really present in the theme song. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. I kinda like the fact that they kept the main characters at a certain number because it made it easy to, like, with the limited amount of episodes they had, you were really able to explore each character in that limited amount of, screen time they also had. So, the main characters, I believe, like, well, of course, the 3 cats, Gordon, Waffle, and Mr. Blick, but then also you had Hovis, the butler,
Mm-hmm.
then you also had Human Kimberly, the, like, Gordon's love interest, and
Yep.
they weren't necessarily main characters, but they were a big part of the show, and they did have their own episodes, so I think that was really fun that they were able to have side characters who could have an episode based around them as well.
There is one more main character that you forgot about. Sorry, I just gotta jump in because Nickelodeon. I had to jump in there. There is one more main character that you forgot about, and that is the bear.
Oh, I do remember the bear. The bear is funny.
Yeah, sorry. Just need to rep my own. Just need to rep my Nickelodeon family out.
Yeah,
Yeah, but again, and it's because that small cast of characters that you're able to do a lot with those characters. And it's because the character dynamic is really what drove the show.
exactly, yeah, and, there were also, like, now that I remember, there were a lot of villain characters as well, and that really, like, gave the show so much like, so many plot lines they could play off of. There were 3 main bullies, and I do not remember their names, but I remember since there were 3 of them, all of them had, like, a cat they kinda matched up with in a way, like,
Hmm.
personality reflection, and I think that was a really fun and creative way to introduce villains to the show.
You're referring to the Chumpy Chump brothers.
Yes, thank you.
Again, repping my Nick fam. Yeah, yeah. Moving on to that. So, obviously, the show wasn't perfect. So, in your mind, Madison, what do you think were some of the issues or some of the lower quality parts that might have made this show not as popular as it should have been?
Well, I think that some of the storylines were a little questionable because I remember, so I have a twin sister, and so that we both like watched Catscratch, but she was a little bit like afraid of it. Like I remember there was one episode where Gordon turned into a ginormous monster because he was allergic to broccoli and he had eaten it.
Mm.
And I remember my sister like could not watch that episode. She would run out of the room and like crying, and I would be like, "I mean, we have to watch this episode. You know, it's like funny." And she just could not deal with it. And I think that a lot of that like played into why maybe Cat Scratch wasn't so popular. Well, didn't like find like a huge fan base, is because some of the plot lines like were maybe scary for children or just a little bit too out there. Like I remember there was like a whole plot line with let's see. I think Gordon like was like part of like a Kraken like legacy or something, like the
Oh
Kraken.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that part. I remember like even as a little kid, it was a little hard to follow. And maybe it just didn't really stick with me that much. But like then there were other plot lines. Like where I remember there was an episode where Waffle bought all the bubble wrap in the world and the family went bankrupt. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever. And I could remember it like 10 years later. So they had like certain plot lines that really, really worked and that stuck out and were memorable. But then they had others that were like maybe like scary or turned like people off. And I remember like yeah, like some of the designs, like when Gordon did turn into that broccoli monster, he
Hmm.
looked scary, you know, like that was scary. But as an artist, I can appreciate how they took that approach and really like showed how he's allergic to this broccoli. But as a kid, you know, like that's like scary. You're like, oh, is this going to happen to me if I eat broccoli? You know?
Yeah, and just talking like a studio executive for a minute. You're doing a lot of episodes. It's like week by week by week. It is a tricky line. Although you can't expect all the episodes to be winners. I was like, there definitely needs to be room for like filler episodes, even if they don't like gel with most of the audience sometimes. I was like, that's one of the things and to be fine about most of these shows. I was like, granted, there are some that people like, but there's also some that people don't like. Like, and I feel like that's kind of an unfair comparison, and because like you can't expect all the episodes to be like banger after banger after banger. There's plenty. There should be room for like filler episodes, just to fill because it's doing like because you like doing a runtime of like 20 episodes, or like 26 or 13 or whatever. And you can't expect all of them to be hit by hit by hit, especially if they're 11 minutes long, each of them. And anime does this all the time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Plus, you have to think about the network that specifically Cat Scratch is being produced in. Like, granted, yeah, Nickelodeon created things like Doug and Hey Arnold and As Told by Ginger or whatever. But these are also the same guys that made Ren and Stimpy, Angry Beavers, Cat Dog, and this underwater grass bag. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to you, Madison, and because as an animator, you're able to pinpoint some of these things and appreciate some of the styles that have been done before. But what do you look for in a cartoon, and that you see like you like it, or if you even just read the premise, like you just read the premise, and what about you sticks out to it that you look at it and you say like, and not really that interesting, or like this does not hold up.
Hmm. I think that if I read a description and I see anything that maybe sounds like very repetitive, it will kind of make me question its originality. Like, for example, if I read, like, if there's a new animated TV show coming out and it sounds exactly like another TV show that is really popular, and it sounds like they are just trying to benefit off of that to get viewers, then I'll be like, well, this doesn't really like probably won't hold the originality I hope it has. And yeah, like also I think that a lot of times reboots can be very
Oh
questionable as well. Like you're like, oh, like are they trying to do something completely new, or are they trying to just get viewers so that they can make some more money? Like I think that that's a big part of it. So another example of that is I was a big fan of the original DuckTales. So when
yeah.
then the new DuckTales came out, I was so excited, so excited. But then as the show started, it kind of gave me like the vibes of like maybe they're just like they're trying to uphold the original, but also they redid it so much that it almost didn't feel like the original in a way. And that I don't know how I feel about that, but I did enjoy the show. I definitely did. But I think that a lot of times now that when I see like certain reboots or anything, I really have to read the description and see what they're changing and if it's going to uphold the original. Like will it
Hmm.
stay true to the original and they're not going to totally just take the original and like throw it away and like say this is our brand new show and we're going to like totally just ignore the previous one. So I think that that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, it's the idea of comparison, like and like, oh, you like this show? We got something else for you, or like brought to you by like or by like, the makers of blah 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 or whatever. In the grand scheme of things, that comparison doesn't work. Like if we were to compare like Cat Scratch to like or like Danny Phantom or especially like Avatar: The Last Airbender, very different shows, all of them. And I'm not saying that Avatar: The Last Airbender compares to anything else. And no one am I saying that. Uh, but like you can't expect like, oh, people like this one thing, they're immediately gonna gravitate towards another thing. I think because we made this, and so you're bound to like this. Especially with the idea of reboots, again going back to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and strangely enough, we keep bringing that up in the podcast, even though this is a niche animation. And this is a niche animation podcast. We just hear Avatar: The Last Airbender thrown as the pantheon of animation and all. And again, I'm not comparing that to anything that we talk about. And no, what am I doing that? Uh, but like if you were to compare like Avatar: The Last Airbender to like The Legend of Korra, for example, or even like the M Night Shyamalan movie, or this live action one coming out. Uh, uh, it's still different. Like it's not gonna like fully like be bound to what the original did, because the original was like a one in its own, and you can't expect that to gel with everybody through all like the reboots or like incarnations or like even just the shows that come out after that, to uphold like the same like singularity that one show had. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And in terms of the plot lines, again, going back to Cat Scratch, for example, yeah, there is definitely a fine line between like acceptable content to maybe a little intense for at least the intended audience was. The best example I could think of this is and I didn't even need to rewatch it to have this like burned into my head, but like the zombie episode where Waffle is accidentally makes that like dip that brings like the zombies back, or he's back from the dead, and invade the house during Mr. Blake's party. How do you like that? Yeah, that one. And even we watching it, that one, I think might have skirted a line between acceptable and a little bit intense. You remember that one, Madison?
I think I do. I think that another thing, like, as an artist, I think that design and also color plays a big part in, like, what grabs an audience, and I do remember Catscratch used a lot of, like, very dark greens, like, more, like, towards, like, darker colors, in my opinion, like, also, like, browns and dark blues, and I think that maybe, like, people took that as, like, "Oh, like, is this, like, a spooky show?" Like, I remember, like, a lot of the episodes did have, like, a lot of very zombie, monster themes, and maybe, like, that kinda took away, like, some of the audience, and they were like, like, for example, like, not to stereotype or anything, but maybe, like, young girls, like, if they watched it, they'd be like, "Oh, this is, like, a
Mhm.
boys' show." And, like, I think that that was maybe a thing for my sister, and, like,
Mhm.
so, like, for example, I remember when I was, like, a little bit older, I would watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like, the Nickelodeon reboot,
Oh
and
yeah.
that was, like, one of my favorite shows ever, but at the same time, I remember, like, some people would tell me, like, "Oh, this is, like, a boys' show, like, why are you watching this?" And I'm like, "Well, I just like it," So I think that, like, that's another thing too, is, like, maybe Cat Scratch, a lot of people would see it or watch, like, turn on the TV, and they would see it and they go, "Oh, this is a boys' show," like, which
Mhm.
some people just think that way, and, like, I don't necessarily agree, but it's just how it happens sometimes. I know that, like, a lot of, like, in the art world, we have to market towards, like, certain colors and, like,
Mhm.
I remember learning about, like, how when a business starts up, they look at the color wheel and they say, "Okay, what colors are going to gravitate an audience towards us based on what we are selling?" And, like, that's, like, a big thing in cartoons and movies as well.
Style is the one thing that many cartoons like. You do want to talk about style in terms of cartoons and animation, and there is no like clear definition of like a style that'll appeal to everybody. Because like cartoons are like so like like it can change from like show to show or like creator to creator or like artist or whatever. And yeah, I do agree with you. I think that is probably one of the things that took people out of it because, like, one of the critiques that we saw when talking about Cat Scratch is that they're saying that it is a generic cartoon show that involves oddly drawn characters who don't really look like anything, very loud noises, and very bright colors, which is kind of a contradictory to what you just said. And
Yeah.
so so yeah, it is tough to try to find that balance between like style and plot line and theme, and like who is it marketed to, and all that stuff.
Exactly, and, like, now that I'm trying to think back to the episodes now, like, I'm trying to think about when there were really bright colors and stuff, but, like, in my head, like, for some reason, when I think back to Cat Scratch, like, I think of, like, they were not so much as bright, more like duller colors and, like, just yeah, because I think about, like, the newts, I think about Waffle. Waffle was gray and,
Hmm.
like, maybe more pale blue, and Mr. Blick, not bright at all, and then Gordon, he was orange and white, but, like, still, like, nothing really stuck out to me as, like, really, like, pop out bright colors, like, back to My Little Pony, all the ponies were super bright and colorful, I think of Cat Scratch, the colors were more, like, neutrals and maybe, like, on the darker side, so, yeah, like, I'll have to go back and look, but, yeah, that's what stands out in my head.
Hmm. It's a strange gamut. It's a strange gamut, and gamut. We're talking about stuff like that, especially to talking about Nickelodeon, which pretty much runs the gamut of any kind of style and color choice. Okay, so again, reverting back to this underwater grass bag. You talking about me? Hello. All right. So, I mean, what do you think are some of the good parts of this show? Like, what are the pros that you think make this show work?
Well, I think that in animation, one of the big things that really sells an audience is the music. And even though Cat
Mm,
Scratch didn't really have any songs, the music is what I instantly think of. I remember the transitional music that would
mhm,
play, like what they showed, like the giant mansion. I can still hear it in my head, and it was over the top goofy. It was just like opera singing, and then also the theme song. That like if someone told me like sing the Catscratch theme song like right now, like I could instantly do it. It just stands out in your head. And then also, yeah, just like the music was fun and cute, and yeah, like that's a big part that stands out to me. Another thing that really works is the voice acting, in my opinion. I mean,
Mm.
we had oh, I'm forgetting his name now, but Wayne Knight is
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Blick, Seinfeld, like very famous. He's also has a lot of cartoon background. And then also Kevin McDonald is Waffle, and he is
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. Like honestly, like Waffle's voice is probably what stands out the most from the show as well. And then Rob Paulson is Gordon, and like just all the voices click so well together. They're all very distinct. They all work off each other, and it created such a good comedy like trio for them. And then also another funny thing about it is I think this the whole story in general really works as well. Like three cats, like, and
Mm-hmm.
they get the house to themselves, and they have a butler, and they have such human emotions to them, and so you really feel like they are human, and you sometimes forget they're cats, and that's like a big thing that I think really shows good character development and just character traits in general. And also, I think, like we were saying earlier, having side characters who can have like an episode focused around them. Like I remember Hovis had a whole episode basically to himself where he kind of wanted to take the cat's fortune and for the cats to be nicer to him. And that was such a good episode. I remember it stood out in my head. And yeah, like just having him and Kimberly be in there as well. It's super cute and super fun. And just those are the parts I think that work the best for the show. And yet, like also maybe having the cats not exactly look like cats was also, I think
Mm-hmm.
that maybe for some people that could be something that turned them away from the show. But for me, I think that that showed that the show is really unique and that the characters are very um like they stand out in your head, and like even though that's not necessarily how a cat looks, it's like a new way of approaching it.
I truly don't know if this is a podcast thing or we just instinctually made it and made it happen. But there's a third line that you just said, Madison, and they're like two big like third lines that we talked about throughout this podcast session. We've done a few episodes, and the two common things that we find in all the shows that the guests have brought on are the characters and the music. Hey, look, one thing that has sold us in a lot of these shows as the guests bring in, even if it's a show that we know nothing about, the second we hear the theme song, it immediately jolts us in. And Cat Scratch is definitely that example of like, okay, here's the premise. You read that. Now have the theme song and just soak that in.
Exactly. Yeah, the theme song's just iconic. I feel like if you hear it one time, it's going to be stuck in your head for like 5 years.
Oh, you mean like la 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 Catscratch?
Exactly.
Not a song. Times one balloon. Keep it controlled. And hey, she's probably up. Yeah, and the character development is a big thing as well. Like the character interaction, and is a big thing as well. Like going back to the Adams Family, and what made that show so popular was not exactly the plots around it, but the characters that were pretty much driving all the storylines, her lines, and driving all the plot lines. And it always came down to that character dynamic between the cast. And it goes again with Cat Scratch too. And again, just talking about voice actors, Wayne Knight. I didn't realize this at the time, but I don't know if people I don't know about this, but like Wayne Knight as a voice actor, I feel like does not get enough credit, because yeah, again, for people that don't know, Wayne Knight, a legendary actor, her Saturday Night Live alum, and of course, very notably Newman in Seinfeld. But he's also voiced like a bunch of like voice acting animation for some, and some of them like very well known. Um, and yeah, I feel like he doesn't get enough credit because of course you have Rob Paulson, and who's the goat, uh, and the voice actor that plays Waffle, of course, but in just rewatching the watching some of these episodes, with Mr. Blick, heck, like I just like keel over laughing at how good like Wayne Knight really like brings it, and, and, like like again, and I didn't realize this at the time, but I think that's probably one of the reasons why Mr. Blick, even though he's not the most likable character, he's probably one of my most favorites, just because of how much Wayne Knight brings to that character. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And also Mr. Blick is the one character with like he balances out Gordon and Waffle because Gordon and Waffle have like very imaginative and like goofy personalities, and Mr. Blick is the one character like standing in the background like, with his arms crossed like, okay guys, like we got to stop goofing off, you know. And he's like the one who would like raise his voice and be like, you know, snap out of it like Waffle and like get back to work or something. And he's that one like grouchy character. So he's like out of the three of them, he's the one with the most like distinct personality, I think. And I think that Wayne Knight did like an amazing job doing that and really bringing like the harshness, but also like the I remember Mr. Blake had so many like fears and just like dilemmas, and he like played that so good, like and so over the top too. Like he could really like
Mhm.
scream and just
Oh
like
yeah,
breakdowns, everything.
yeah. It's so good. It's so good, and you truly don't, you truly don't look, you don't see like voice actors like that. I was like that. Well, well, you don't see like cartoons, like as obscure as this, and yeah, the plot lines might not work, but like when the characters like really deliver, when the voice actors really deliver, uh, oh, it just gives a whole nother life to these characters, even if they don't really gel with too many people.
Exactly, yeah. And for me, like I remember there were definitely some episodes like when I go back and watch them, like I would like I couldn't watch it all. Like I would maybe like skip over that one episode. But then there were others I would go back and rewatch like 3 times. So like yeah, like there is like a little balance between it.
That's actually a great segue. So, so if you were to convince someone to watch this show, or even if they haven't seen it, what would you think is like the selling point? Like, what is the episode that you point to try to convince people to watch Cat Scratch who may have never heard of it?
There was one really funny episode I remember. It was a later episode too. It was where Waffle decided to be friends with one of the villainous brothers, and they would play foghorn, and they would make like foghorn noises, and not to spoil it, but at the end of the episode, they had to like really like use their game to like save the day, and it was so funny and just goofy. And I remember it was really cute as well. And I think that I actually one day like I was like telling my mom like remember that show Cat Scratch, and we actually watched that episode together, and she was laughing and she thought it was so cute. So I think that's like a good episode to kind of introduce someone to. But also I would say maybe an episode maybe where like it explains the family dynamic and like kind of how they got into their position and like who Hovis is and stuff. Like, I think that'd be a good part to start off with.
Yeah, backstory can definitely help with a lot of that. But yeah, yeah, like those kinds of plots you mentioned, like it's just so simple, but it's also crazy. Like that's one of the things that we particularly love about cartoons and animation. And just a simple premise but it has like an ordinary outcome. And like the best example that I can think of this is the episode or where I think you actually just mentioned this is where Waffle buys all the bubble wrap in the
Yes.
world and bankrupts the cast, and they have to find jobs to kind of to get their home back.
Yeah, yeah. That was a really good episode. It was just so goofy too that you can like just watch it, and like I think that another thing when you're starting out with something, like if you want to introduce someone to a show, you should start with an episode that maybe they don't have to continue watching it, like to find
Mhm.
out like the next like like it ends at a cliffhanger, and you're like, well, what happens next? And like, if you don't have like the time, like right immediately to go see what happens, like then like you might just kind of forget about it and lose interest. I kind of like to introduce people to like episodes where like they can kind of just watch it for fun, and then they can be like, oh, well, I really like that. Maybe I should go watch another one, and like maybe like it doesn't have to necessarily be right away, and so that gives them like kind of like that free space in between to kind of think about it, then go see like explore more, you know?
And it also helps that some of them are a little more relatable too. Like going back to that bubble wrap thing, then and yeah, that episode was insane, but it was also in a way kind of the most relatable because it featured like finding work, or getting paid low wages, isn't getting angry about it. You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, Plus, it gets absurd with like the fact that they blew up the mall, thanks to a volcano of root beer.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I remember that. That was so funny.
But that's the thing, and the plots can be simplistic, maybe relatable, um, and then the outcome just gets extremely insane. And like a couple other examples I can think of is the mouse chasing episode, with Squeakus the mouse. That's where Waffles is trying to catch a mouse for the first time, and ends up being in a battle with the mouse Squeakus.
I think I remember that episode. I might have to go back and Google it. I do remember there was an episode where Waffle thought he was a dog. And I remember that was like that was a very interesting episode.
Yeah, but again, and and the simple premise, but an insane outcome. And going back to voice actors for a sec, I don't know who played the dog character Barkmeek, but like Jesus Christ, that voice actor went for it.
Oh yeah, that I remember that. Yeah, the dogs were so like intimidating too, I remember. And I think that that was like a big thing too about like characters, like making memorable characters that you can remember years later cuz like I haven't seen that episode in a while, but I still remember the dogs definitely.
Hmm. Absolutely. Hey, yeah, again, and just these simple like nuggets or like nuggets. It's like even if you haven't seen it, it just immediately clicks in you. Like especially like mid like quotes. It's like you was a light show, and of course Splee as well.
Yes, yes, and, I remember some of the funniest quotes were from Waffle, like, just, like, the most random stuff, and I think that that's something that made his character work so well, like, he was just the kind of character who would just stand on the side, and I remember there was this one episode where Human Kimberly's rabbit like Gordon thought that it got hit by a car, so he had to go get a new one. And they built a fake rabbit, and Mr.
Hmm.
Blick was making it like dance around and stuff. And Waffle was like, I think something like that once bit me in my sleep. It was just so funny. And I still think about that part a lot. It was yeah, like just the little iconic one-liners. Perfect.
It works so well. It works so well. All right. So, Madison, picture this. If you had creative control to do whatever you wanted to do with Catscratch, you can decide if you want to reboot it, you want to revise it, you want to continue it, whatever you want to do. If you had the power of control to do whatever you wanted with Catscratch, what would you do with it?
So first off, I think that okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Cat Scratch is available to watch like on any kind of like streaming service, like Paramount Plus, and like
It's not on Paramount Plus. I'll tell you that right now.
oh no. So yeah, like I think that if it did reboot or anything, like it wouldn't have like I don't know if it would have an audience. So I think that first off, what I would want to do is make it available on something like Paramount Plus, or maybe even like if Nickelodeon did like a throwback day, they could like show it there. And if they were able to find like an audience and people were interested in it, then why not try like a reboot or maybe like even just like some sort of like reunion with the voice actors like I remember one time I actually tweeted on Twitter, like I tweeted Kevin McDonald, who played um, Waffle. And he actually responded, and he was saying how much he missed the show, and that, um, like he was like technically saying, he's like, well, this show was never technically canceled, so why not do a reboot? And I was like, oh, that'd be perfect. And he was like, he tagged Rob Paulson and Wayne Knight in the tweet as well. And I was like, celebrity moment. But yeah, like, I definitely think that first, like, find an audience, get the original back, like show it to audiences who like have no idea what it is and stuff, and just, yeah, like maybe from there start looking at a possible reboot.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, and like in the realm of like reboots and sequels, and like, oh yeah, everything has a sequel to it. Everything has like a reboot, or like there's so many reunions going around. Um, I truly feel like I truly feel like the field is open for any of these shows to really make a resurgence. And the problem is, I don't know like if they would really gel. Because we were just talking about how some of the plot lines don't really mash anymore. But again, and it goes back to what we said about the smart comedy. The beauty of this show is that the comedy is still pretty good. It's still pretty good. At least a lot of it still holds up, and the animation still holds up, which I was equally shocked about.
Exactly, I think the animation is just cute and fun. It still looks super smooth, and like it works. It's one of those kinds of like styles that holds up even like 15 years later. And another thing is, I was thinking about it. If it was animated today, how would how different would it look? Would they, because I think they would have to make a few changes. Like I think that every reboot, the characters never look exactly the same. Like
Mhm.
look at DuckTales, they don't look anything like the originals. So I think that like just maybe to make it a little bit different from the original, probably whoever would be in control. Like if I was in control though, I would definitely want it to look the same, and just kind of continue from where it left off. But I think that like, yeah, if like Nickelodeon had creative control over it, they would probably definitely want to make a few changes. And I don't know how that would work out, but I really hope they would stick with the same like fun, unique style that the original had.
Granted, a lot of that comes with like new technology and like budget restraints and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. And Cat Scratch, and honestly, a lot of these shows, I feel like truly don't get a chance, and to really like expand on their story, expand on like the techniques they can use. There's some of like the fun plot lines as they really could emphasize. As I feel like shows like these, especially nowadays, really just don't get that chance to really dive into it. But unless it's like in like the first like 5 episodes, they have that. Although I really think that the first episode really did that with Cat Scratch. And another example I can think of that. It's sprinkled throughout the episodes as the series moved on. But the best example I can think of it in terms of like a really like grounded story, all right, and still like had a good plot, and it was still like crazy as all get out. Was the woolly mammoth episode with Mr. Blick, where the cats get an iceberg and it thaws out a woolly mammoth, and that mammoth actually and that mammoth thinks that it's Mr. Blick is its mother.
I do remember that episode. That was a cute episode.
Which leads me to the question, Madison, and I'll let you have the final thoughts on this. And, it, as someone that is in this industry, kind of in this industry. Well, I'll say, yeah, fairly in the industry. Hey, with the rise of all this like new technology coming around, like AI, and like the brink of studio collapse, some like financial decisions and all that. Do you feel like there's still hope for shows similar to Cat Scratch that are both funny and can be heartfelt in the media nowadays?
I think it really depends. I think that with this day and age, TikTok has like really, I blame TikTok for like AI. I think that it's also very much like at fault for like how children are perceiving like TV shows and movies nowadays. Like I think social media has just really changed the animation industry as a whole. And like I think that like now like whenever I scroll through TikTok, I'll see so many like AI videos and
Hmm.
just like, you know, animation and just it's the heart's not there anymore and it makes me super sad. But I do think that one thing that really has changed my point of view on like that oh animation's like going on a downward spiral and stuff is that have you heard of that Once Upon a Studio short film that Disney put out like back in October?
Yes, I have heard of that. Yes.
Yes, so that I think is like maybe like the open the door towards like, hey, maybe this can work. Maybe 2D animation can come back like and make a really big impact because with this the new movie, the Disney film Wish, that is
Hmm.
technically 3D animation, but it did not do well at the box office. And then meanwhile, Once Upon a Studio went absolutely viral. And like that's 2D, you know, and like that had so much heart to it. And there's also like a lot of theories and like speculation that Wish like possibly used AI within its
Mm.
movie. And I don't know if that's true. I'm not claiming anything, but like yeah, I think that like maybe like certain animators and like companies are starting to open their eyes and be like, "Oh, maybe this is actually what people want. Maybe this is like what people are aiming towards." And like when like with Paramount Plus and like Disney Plus, you have access to all these old shows that like came out so long ago and like people are starting to look back at that and like yeah, like I think that there is hope for like more heartfelt and shows similar to Cat Scratch. I think that we're just in the very beginning stages of that though, and we'll see like where it is in like 5 years.
Madison, an absolute pleasure to have you on and talk about everything with the show, with art and animation in general. It's such a pleasure to have you in. Where can people find you? I need to learn more about Madison Meleski and all the great work you do, and what are some projects that you might be working on?
Well, some projects that I am currently working on are for Peaches and Cream Foundation. I am their graphic designer, and it's a startup company, and we work to help children who are in need of like resources in learning. So we are making mascot characters and like having so much fun with that. But I can't say too much about it because it's still in the works. But I will say that I am super proud of the work I've been doing there. And then also, I just finished working with Necessary Behavior, which is another company, another startup company in Los Angeles, and that was super fun. And you should definitely go check out their work. They talk a lot about women empowerment and the environment and just like yeah definitely very good topics. And then if you wanted to find me, you can visit my website at Meleski MG. um, my portfolio is up there and yeah like I have all my animations. If you ever want to reach out and find my work, definitely like visit my website. And also, yeah, like that's what I've been working on. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And it was such a fun and exciting opportunity to talk about one of my favorite shows from my childhood.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Well, folks, you heard it. She is working on so many good stuff. And of course, if you're liking this podcast, be sure to comment, rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us. And if you're interested in checking out the YouTube for all of our other animation contents and some podcast related and some just general animation. And you can check out the at youtube.com for our guest Madison. And for my cohorts, SpongeBob and SpongeBob and SquarePants, I am Barney the Dinosaur, saying be sure to put your toys away when you're done with them. And we'll see you next time on Talking Tunes with Toys.